In the bliss of ignorance, mighty giants exist. The sky turns angry, raining down boulders of dust. Set ablaze today, their death is a must. Demons of rocks approach, reign of chaos to land. An epic song, an orchestra of death. 60 million years to pass, notes of debris set to sound. It is played loud and strong to pummel from above on water, cities and lands. A scientist looks to the sky, her thoughts secure humankind's fate. Doom is set, there is an end date. A plan is presented. All nations agree, humans will not die. Coming together with one goal, one task. Our destiny is not to fade or drift away, but working as one, our mark is here, it will stay. Pluribus Unum, a place for all to exist. One from many is the cry, many nations to one people. In the shadows await, set to destroy. Glory to God, His might will be obeyed. The many against the one. Sabotage, sacrifice, chaos. The plan for one must never be. A friend's embrace, love is secured. Coded whispers forever here, unafraid. A pilot of great resolve, strength and control. Into the rocks at her command, Vandu rising side by side, conquering the dust beast. Success today, coming together in a feast. Be Pluribus Unum, one from many, all to see. Build our arcs massive and grand, break the bonds of gravity. Be Pluribus Unum, hearts on fire. A symphony of hope, one voice to inspire. From many, the one. The stars belong to us. A new dawn arise in an endless night. Our hearts as one, many nations together. E pluribus unum, it shall be done.
Year 6. Year 6, Month 2. Week 1, Day 1 hour 12 minute 37 second 1. Earth date 602010111230-701. Chapter 6. Location: Conference Room, UN Building. Everyone, please be seated, Jean-Luc Pichon said as he took his seat. There were 12 delegates from different countries representing different interests. This meeting was the start of population management. Pichon picked up the booklet that was in front of him. All, let's begin. Turn to page 5. I'd like us to review jurisdiction of sovereign nations in the selection of persons. Everyone turned to that page. Within the first paragraph, it is established that all member nations of the UN will select and present individuals to the various projects and eventual resettlement. Any questions? Pichon gave the delegates the time to read through the first page, of which was written in a dozen different languages. After several minutes, it was the representative from the Republic of Fiji, Tamo Tavola, who raised a question. There is a clause that, let me get this correct, is that the sovereign nation must submit the process it will use in selecting individuals during different phases of the project. Pichon nodded. Yes. Why? Because the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has been tasked to confirm that all nations follow a practice of fairly and equally selecting individuals based on merits, skills, and needs. I see. Then we are not free to choose who we deem worthy. Pichon leaned back in his chair. This is where it would begin. The questioning and bickering. Tavola had a point, he thought. How can one say, pick anyone you want, but do it the way we want you to do it? I understand. he simply said. However, there will be a vetting process through many stages. The OHCHR would like the process as evenly fair as each nation is capable of doing. Tavola said, Fiji does not have the option of going underground like other nations. Our choices are limited, and we insist on selecting who we want to go. Our way. I see. Anyone else? Russia, China, and Italy raised concerns. The evening inched on. Pishan looked at his watch. 5 hours gone, 12 commas moved, a dozen sentences changed. Okay, what we have now is, all member nations of the UN will present a letter to OHCHR declaring their intent to be fair and select individuals based off of a criteria set forward by the governing leadership of the member nations. The criteria shall be established by the normal and moral practices of the sovereign member nation's government, as it will be consistent with the member nation's established constitution and our standing edict regarding moral, religious, and cultural behavior. Pishan let out a low sigh. We are all in agreement then. He waited a moment. Okay then, page 2, please. And thus it began. Meeting after meeting, in the many conference rooms, the push-pull play on moving to phase 1 and then later phases. Economic and religious freedom were hot-button topics. Women's rights were another. Every nation had an issue, but the OHCHR had been given teeth. It had the power to deny any country's selection residency passage. It also had the power to expel any individual who violated another resident's human and civil rights. After 8 months of meetings, conferences, negotiations, and deals, the United Nations produced a 1,796-page document, Worker Selection, to health care, to economy, to population distribution, to governing body, to democratic elections, to eventual insertion as a member nation. The sovereign nation of Carhayaken, the first experiment and one of many mega space stations, would be a country in space. Initial population, 1 million. Currency, credits, distribution of wealth, equal. Within Carhayaken, everyone contributed. There would be no royalty. The privileged initially would not exist, though there were no illusions that in the future that could change. Carhayaken citizenship meant one was part of the community, not above it. Previous titles of power and privilege were tossed. You had a skill, learned a skill, or you taught a skill. That was required. Money and fame meant next to nothing. Year 6. Year 6, month 10, week 2. Day 12, hour 1 minute 22, second 54. Earth date, 6/10/2/12/122:54. Chapter 7. The building orbit was littered with heavy cargo and mining vessels. The U.S., Russia, and China had 2 heavy cargo ships and 1 mining vessel each. The unofficial bet was the nation that brought in the most raw material over the first 12 months would have first choice to a habitat ring. India, South America, Mexico, and China supplied the bulk of heavy labor workers. Most of the smaller countries that couldn't supply miners contributed people to manufacturing, textile, and administration. The UK, New Zealand, Singapore, and Israel contributed mostly to electronics. Canada, the US, and Russia made most of the cargo and mining vessels. Canada, France, Japan, and Holland made half the interorbit transports. The rest of the European Union, Philippines, South Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, Greece, and Italy made the rest. The US and Russia made the launch vehicles, and the list went on and on of things to do and things to make, down to the making of much-needed bolts, wires, and electronic components. Nearly every nation contributed. The International Space Station had acquired 10 more modules during the first active year of construction. One would be the command center until Segment 1's ComCent was completed with housing. Projected completion was set at another 6 months. Linda took a deep breath and let it out slowly. She had gone through an accelerated astronaut training course. It was brutal, but she made it. She heard from Paniqua. She had been accepted into the program. She was several classes behind Linda. Her kids would stay with their grandmother for a few years before going through the program themselves. Each would choose a field, and upon graduation would follow her into space. T-9 minutes and holding, she heard over the helmet speakers. This was it, she thought. Finally, Linda turned her head to the right. Estelle, one of her classmates, seemed to be sleeping. On her left sat Jesus. He was softly humming to himself. She looked forward and started thinking about Gail and wondered if she'd look the same. Gail had sent her a selfie with the Earth in the background. Besides her hair looking kind of wild, she seemed the same. Maybe a little bit bloated in the face, but otherwise the same. T-minus 9 minutes and counting. Gail listened to the countdown from the command module. Ted gave her the time off to greet Linda when the Crew Dragon V2 module docked. T-minus 16 seconds. She held her breath. Linda swallowed and let out a good deep breath. 5, 4. She inhaled softly and held it in. The mission controller said, 3, 2, 1, liftoff. The Falcon Heavy with Crew Dragon V2 Launch 136 is on its way to the International Space Station. Its mission is to deliver the new command module crew, Pluribus Unum. Gail remembered to breathe. Linda, her wife, was coming. Life would be good, and the bed would be warm again. Year 8. Year 8, month 2, week 2. Day 3, hour 12, minute 42, second 14. Earth date, 80202032124214. Chapter 8. Captain Park Seo-yeon nudged the vector joystick a bit. The mining craft Bonghwang rotated along its center point and faced the asteroid. Park set the range finder to 10 kilometers and started a forward burn at 1%. Captain, Commander Tenzin Chi, the Bonghwang's first officer, said, "Radar puts us at 1,000 clicks." Park grunted. "Then, we're in for a long, slow descent. Any changes in spectroanalysis?" "Rich in nickel, some other metals, there's gold and platinum." Tenzin tapped at his screen. "Water is confirmed. I think this is going to be a good haul." "About time we got a break. Any uranium?" "Nothing yet, ma'am, but there is a higher than ambient area of radiation in the lower quad. It'll rotate into sensor and scope range in about 30 minutes. I'm hoping this rock has diamond." "Diamonds, hell yeah, would be nice." Chief Kirk Pascal floated into the command area and settled himself into the engineer's station. "Engines at 102% ready, ma'am." Park nodded. "We'll need those extra 2%. Kirk tapped out a command on his screen. "We got enough fuel to burn at max for 45 days. Park grabbed the control stick. "Gonna do a 5% burn for 30 seconds, then coast us into 10 clicks. That should give us an additional 32 hours at max." Tenzin said, "Kirk, 10 credits, the captain is within 8%. "That's a sucker's bet. Make it 3% and you're on." "All right, 3% plus minus, or less." Kirk thought about it. "All right, I'm in, you cap." Park slowly said, "You sure? I hate taking advantage of crew, especially you, Chief." 20 credits then." Park gave Tenzin a side glance and smiled. "I'm in, run the numbers." "Ha," Kirk tapped in the equations and started the simulation. "Damn, how do you do it?" Tenzin asked, "What's the margin?" Kirk sighed heavily, 0.5%. "What?" the first officer laughed. "Oh man, that's the closest the captain's come." He looked at Park. "How do you do it?" Park flipped a few switches and smiled. She toggled the intership intercom on. Attention crew, command deck broadcast. Engine burn aft in 20 seconds. Total burn time 30 seconds. 2 beep announcement to 5 seconds start. Secure breakables on mark." "Mark." Captain out. The Bonghwang's main aft engine flared to life. Thousands of metric tons of thrust pushed the mining craft forward. After 30 seconds, the main engine burns stopped, and the nozzle glowed a dull orange a few seconds before it cooled enough to turn black. Park said, "Run the numbers, gentlemen. How are we doing?" Tenzin replied, "Looking good. We should reach 10 clicks in 12 hours. "Engine's good, Captain," Kirk answered, then in a low voice, seemingly absent-mindedly, "How does she do it?" Park's smile was slight, but anyone not looking closely would miss it. A friend called it her Cheney face. "Log time and start watch, 3 hours on. Tenzin, your choice this time." "Kirk, you take first watch." "Yes, he scores," Kirk replied. "I'll do second, Captain." Park nodded and tapped at her screen. "Logged." Both unbuckled from their seats and floated to the entranceway. Kirk unsnapped himself from his station and moved over to the co-pilot station. He snapped in and tapped at the screen. Captain, uranium confirmed. He selected soft rock as background music and started up a FPS game. Park took lead and headed to mess. She pushed off from the door jamb and sped down the long corridor to a ladder that led to the lower sections of the Bonghwang. She hadn't had any real food in the last 8 hours and had just started getting hunger pains. When she entered, most of the crew were seated around the dozen round tables dotting the open area. Park and Tenzin made their way to an unoccupied table. It was her usual place in mess, and crew tended to always leave it free for her. Cookie swooped in and stopped himself with a hand against the edge of the table. "What can I get you, Captain, Commander?" "Any lamb left?" Park asked. "Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, Cookie, you got enough for 2 meals. Cookie smiled. "I figured you'd want some Cap. I got a few days' worth for you." "Now, Cookie, you aren't cheating the crew, are you? I don't need any special favors." Cookie laughed out loud. "Cap, the crew would insist I take care of you. We're all grateful for the second chance." "This is a good crew." Tenzin nodded. "Cookie's right, Captain. Hey, Cookie, does that gratefulness extend to me?" Cookie turned and pushed himself away from table. His laugh was hearty and loud. "Hey, guys," he said as he entered the galley area. Tenzin wondered if gratefulness extended to him. Tenzin blushed as he heard more laughter before the door to the galley closed shut. "Well," he huffed, "I guess I know." After a moment of thinking, he chuckled. "I deserved that one." Park's smile broadened. "After this haul, you could retire." "And do what?" He shrugged. "This is all I know. My parents applied for one of the underground units." "And your sister?" "Yesterday, she sent me email. She wrote that she'll be on board the HS May C. Jemison when it launches in a month. She is excited." "I'd be excited too. How wonderful, Doctor." He nodded. "The youngest and assigned to trauma evac." "Good for her. Hopefully we'll never see her." Tenzin thought for a moment, then laughed. "I see your point." Cookie drifted into the mess area and stopped at the table. He held a half-dozen thick tubes of food in his arms. Each tube had a Velcro strip that easily attached to the receiving strips on the table. The food could be pushed out using the plunger on one side or scooped out using a spork. Park and Tenzin decided to spork the meal. Cookie also placed 2 squeeze bottles of grog. Park took a sip and softly moaned. "Oh, Cookie, you shouldn't have." The grog had been heated up and tasted all the more delicious as it made its way to her stomach. Cookie smiled and pushed himself away from the table. Halfway to the galley, he spotted Bonghwang's doctor. "Dr. Grenier, Cap is at the usual table." Dr. Ocean Grenier, the ship's chief medical officer, drifted over to the table. Her deep red hair was short in a neat cut. She wore the standard mid-blue jumpsuit like everyone else. "Captain Tenzin." Both nodded and made room for Grenier. Cookie came out of the galley. He had a squeeze bottle of heated grog. "Cookie, you do know how to spoil a girl, don't you?" He blushed. "Doc, anything to eat?" Grenier squeezed the bottle lightly and enjoyed the warmed grog. "Maybe another round in a few. Thank you, Cookie." "I'll be out in a few to check in on ya." He pushed himself toward the galley door. Park positioned herself toward Grenier. "This hall should have a set for a while." "Really?" "With gold, uranium, platinum, and water ice." "Water," Grenier interrupted. Park nodded. "We got the big 4. "Nice. When do we celebrate?" "The computer is running analysis now. I'm thinking we'll have to go slow on this one, like 6 months slow." Grenier drained her squeeze bottle. "Oh." "Yeah." Park shrugged and sporked a chunk of lamb into her mouth. "We got the fuel and the food. This rock is just heavy." "I see," Grenier finally said. Cookie placed the squeeze bottle into her hand. She drank deeply. "Cookie, I think I will have something to eat. You have any burgoo?" Cookie beamed. "Always have burgoo. What good galley would I run if I hadn't any?" Grenier took another sip of grog. "It's not like I have someplace to go, is it?" Park answered, "Exactly." Tenzin pretty much said the same thing. "Me? I got the Bonghwang here, and even though it's been through a lot, I don't see me selling anytime soon." "That's good," a voice at the entrance said. Jamie Jackman, the ship's bosun, drifted to the table. "Room for a 4th." Park said, "Of course, Cookie will be out in a bit." Jackman nodded. "Everything is ready, Captain. I read the report Mr. Pascal posted. She's a beauty, all right. Is this the one? I got kids on Earth to feed." Grenier said, "You'd be able to make them fat." "That's what I'm talking about," Jackman exclaimed. "Fat, happy kids." Cookie floated into mess. "I thought I heard Jackie's voice. Grog or a pint?" "Cookie is always one to take care of us. A pint, mate, thanks." Then over the ship's intercom, "Captain to front deck. Captain to front deck." Park scooped the last bit of lamb into her mouth and sucked in the remaining grog. "Be back," she said as she pushed herself toward the mess entryway. A moment later, she darted up through the ladderway and with a powerful push launched at high speeds to the front deck door. At the last second, she pivoted and came to an abrupt stop using her legs as springs. The door hissed opened and she entered. "Captain," Kirk started, "tank pressure in engine pod 2 is down." "How much?" 2 points in 10 minutes. Park shot him a disbelieving look. "I had to be sure if it was a sensor malfunction." "Meteorite." "I'll have to check." "Understood." Park then flipped the ship intercom switch to on. "Mr. Chi, front deck please, Mr. Chi, front deck please." Tenzin was about to start his second bottle of grog when he heard the broadcast. Grenier said, "Something's wrong." Jackman raised an eyebrow and gave the first officer an inquisitive look. Tenzin shrugged and slightly shook his head. His laugh was nervous. "Of course not, you." "There is something wrong," Grenier stated, her voice not too loud. Tenzin tried to comfort her. "I'm sure I forgot to close the bathroom door or something. Probably nothing. I'm sure there is nothing wrong. Gotta go." He launched himself toward the mess entryway and hurried to front deck. The remaining personnel in mess watched the first officer as he sped through the doorway. Several got up from their tables and rapidly moved out. A familiar old fear creeped into their minds. Most had one thought: not again, not again. Tenzin entered front deck. Kirk had reached for the intership comm unit and entered the code for engineering. "Liam," Kirk said, "we need a crew ASAP topside and mid-drift aft. Engine pod 2, pressure leak." "Roger, pressure leak acknowledged," Liam replied. "Captain, request early release from station watch." "Request granted." Kirk nodded and sped through the opened doorway. Seconds later, he disappeared up the ladder way to a corridor that would take him directly to engineering. Tenzin belted into his seat and defaulted all readouts, displays, and icons back to his previous settings. Kirk customized everything, and that irked him often. As protocol dictated, he placed his headset on and checked that his spare air was in the ready. Hart counted the minutes it took for Kirk to transmit he and fire drill team were outside moving aft toward the engines. Old warnings told to her by fellow captains that her crew had been cursed. Death and destruction would follow them, and there would be no redemption. She waved the naysays off and chalked it up to superstition. Her lot was prone to do that often, and she knew this was one of them. Most of the crew had exceptional records, a few commendations and awards for heroism. Cookie was one of them. This was a fine crew, she told herself, through and through. Nothing to worry about. We'll get through this. Kirk slowly made his way to Engine 2. It was aft port when facing Bayou. MacDonald, Liam, Gupta, and Kayan, his first shift staff, formed a line as they followed Kirk. Each man barely breathed, as the engine grew larger and larger within their sights. "Not again," each hoped. "Not again." "Do you think," Gupta started. He didn't want to be the one to put the jinx on. "Shush," Kayan and MacDonald said simultaneously. Kayan continued, "It can't be." "Captain," Kirk asked through his helmet comm, "what's the pressure?" 34% loss. Her voice crackled. Kirk figured 60% loss would be enough to hamper the mission. 80% or more would mean they'd have to probably get help from another ship, which meant splitting profit. A few more minutes, Kirk stopped and looked around. "Guys, spread out and look for surface spray." The group fanned out and meticulously checked external piping and bulk plates. 10 minutes later, MacDonald swore. "Chief, damn, I found the leak, and something else." Kirk, like the rest, cautiously made his way over to MacDonald. He knelt close to what MacDonald was pointing to and saw a pipe had been damaged. An oversized bolt-like device was attached to a section of the pipe. There was an acid-corroded hole on top. Fluid was leaking out and evaporating millimeters from the opening. MacDonald said he found the leak by sheer luck and some intuition. Next to the leak was a device not meant to be there. No, 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 Kirk repeated. This is not fair. Mr. Pascal, report, came the crackling voice. Captain. Oh, yes. Please switch to secure channel Delta. The crypt code is at my station. Use the third row down. A minute later, Park said, switching. Kirk tapped at the small CRT on his wristcom. Can you hear me, Captain? 5x5. We have a saboteur on board. An auxiliary pipe had been tampered with, and I think we... His voice trailed off. It was unthinkable and unfair. Chief, what? Kirk took a deep breath. He let it out slowly and said in a rush, I think we have a bomb. Silence. Captain, Kirk said, did you hear me? After a moment, timed rigged. I don't know. I just know we aren't supposed to physically repair this leak. Thoughts. We detached the entire Engine 2 pod and cast it adrift. And with that, he realized his words doomed the mission. They probably wouldn't have enough thrust and power to maneuver this rock to the construction site. Kirk. He heard a softness to the captain's voice he never imagined before. Despite the crackle and feedback spikes, it had a genuine tenderness. This captain he would follow to hell and back. Yes, ma'am. Please proceed with detaching Engine 2. I'll place the crew on emergency alert. How much time? There are dozens of external bolts we have to cut. The final part of the process is automatic and can be done from front deck or engineering. I recommend not telling crew just yet. Anything else? No, yeah. It should take us about 10 hours to finish. Pretty tight between that and transferring the asteroid. Park took a deep breath. She ran the numbers in her head. It was still possible, she thought. With one less engine, the Bonghwang could max burn longer, though speed and thrust would be reduced. Understood. Kirk tapped at his wristcom and piped into the intersuit communications. Guys, switch over to Crypt Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo. Use append Echo Delta and enter your ID code. Now they would be able to communicate amongst themselves securely. We are going to detach Engine 2. The crew will not be alerted. Yet, understood. The acknowledgements came in one by one. Good. Chief, Gupta started, 10 hours. Kirk nodded, still knowing that no one would see it. I'm bringing in several drones. The cuts don't have to be pretty. Understood. Kirk tapped out the command code to activate several drones. He entered the commands needed for them to start cutting the major bolts. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Park watched on several monitors, Kirk, his staff, and the drones work. The tedious task of not being able to do anything weighed heavily on her. She drummed her fingers the entire time. Captain, Kirk's voice broke the silence. We're done here, coming aboard. Acknowledged, she said as she unstrapped from her command chair. It took her less than a minute to reach the main port side airlock. The large lock cycled through the many safety protocols and slowly opened. Kirk removed his helmet as he stepped back onto the port side bay area. Captain, a few internal disconnects and we can jettison Engine 2. Park nodded. How long? Another hour, maybe 2. 2 hours would get us uncomfortably close to the asteroid. Like kilometers too close. Kirk nodded. We had to find another way to cut a bolt that was too close to the leak. Our last emergency drill had focused on. His voice fell silent. Chief, what? Our last drill. We specifically focused on an engine detachment. Several reserve engineers were involved. Park raised an eyebrow. Meaning, we may be able to find out who did this. He nodded. Possibly the bastard. He took a deep breath. Anyway, when we get past this, I can personally kick his or her ass for this grief. Park responded. After I've had my turn, of course. Kirk smiled. He thought Park pretty cool-headed. She was a thinker, but she was also a fighter. She wasn't half bad in ZG Brawl. beat him a few times with some awesome moves. He turned to his staff. Guys, you know what's needed. Please keep this between us and let's get this over with. Gupta and Liam, you work the internal bolts. Kyan and MacDonald work wiring. With a nod from each, they were off. Words were not needed. What does one say when faced with approaching doom having an unknown time schedule? Tick-tock, tick-tock. Linda had been monitoring the S-band per normal shift watch protocol. The command crew had transferred to the command segment 1, C-Zone, about 5 months ago, and the routine for monitoring radio traffic and answering calls almost seemed normal. The first month was without major problems. It was the second month, and beyond that, things started to break down. Strange, odd, and nearly impossible wire and pipe disconnects happened more and more often. Then the symbols and slogans started to show up. Abunu no moriendum from one dimeny. The fourth month of mishaps was annoying, until the cargo ship Palin lit the sky up in a blue flash. All 40 hands lost. The last transmission was a rogue broadcast from the Palin. The individual yelled, Abunu no moriendum. A minute later, the captain broadcasted a request for help. His mayday went on for 5 minutes, then the surrounding sky lit up. The Palin had managed to push a 350,000-ton asteroid into transfer orbit to the build site before the explosion. Unfortunately, the resulting blast nudged the rock out of its aligned orbit and sent it into a slow spiral back into the asteroid field. There were no available miners or hauler to immediately correct the orbit. The project was put behind schedule by 2 months. It had been a week without mishaps, and Linda hoped tonight would be totally, absolutely, dead boring. She was entering the 3rd hour of her shift when she heard the message. It was coded with a level 2 crypt code. It was from the Bonghwang Captain Park commanding. The message was short. Sabotage. Mission in jeopardy. Saboteur still on board. Send available for dual purpose. Assist with mission or pick up survivors. Nothing follows. Linda looked up the nearest vessel. It was the Vandu. She sent a coded message with coordinates to the captain, but knew it would probably be a disaster observer site instead of a rescue mission. She then typed out a coded message to the ISS per protocol. From there, the message would be transmitted to every observatory. And of course, Linda thought the news agencies would pick it up and the world would know. The Vandu captain acknowledged her message 35 minutes later and sent the response that ship and crew are on the way. Fast burn to last known location. Captain Tekla Passini was in her cabin reading progress reports when the second shift comm officer broke the silence. Captain, message from C-Zone, rescue mission. The Vandu was set to snag a small asteroid within 5 days. The haul was estimated at $250 billion that would finally pay off her debts and give the crew a tidy bonus. It had a deposit of iron and molybdenum, and the Ficulitan Corporation wanted it badly. Passini sighed and tapped out a command on the desk command response terminal pad to check the Vandu's insurance. Damn, she thought. It only covered $50 million. Ficulitan would get $40 million. After fuel, food, and crew pay, she'd have 100,000 credits left. This would be the 3rd mission in a row that netted practically zero for her bank account. She clicked the comm button to forward deck. Bliff. A few seconds later, yes, ma'am. You heard. His voice was even. Sucks big rocks. Send the acknowledgement and prepare a spike beacon. In fact, prepare 2. I'll be there shortly. Aye, ma'am. Sending an acknowledgement and 2 spike beacons. Passini made a quick entry into her personal log and pushed herself to the cabin door. She looked around the room and realized they would have to fast burn to reach the rescue site. She turned her main lights out. She'd have to remember to instruct the crew to go on power discipline and rations. Once in the main corridor, Passini found a foot stop and pushed off toward a ladder. From the ladder, she launched herself toward forward deck and kicked out a foot against the bulk wall to stop her ascent. You figured out a fast route there. Bliff Radcliffe nodded. Yes, ma'am. 2-week fast burn, 3-day coast, 1-week hard burn to stop. That'll give us 6 months slow coast to C-Zone. I hear one of the hospital ships should be online by then. Passini nodded. Same, let's hope so. Scale the chart up on view, please. Bliff tapped out the command on main station CRT. A large translucent image of a star chart appeared in the middle of forward deck. Passini walked up and traced a finger from their current position to where the Bonghwang may eventually end up. Bliff, what if we go vertical to their orbit, then fast burn to rendezvous? I calculated that, Captain. We'd get there in 2-day transfer orbit, 1 week hard burn, 2-day red line to stop. Passini punched out engineering room on the communit. Gah-ka. Yes, ma'am, said the male voice. Engine status. Can we red line at 105 for 2 days? As she heard the laughter, her heart sank. Sorry, Captain. I thought you asked if we can red line, period. I did ask. Ma'am, 0.97 is redlining for us. I see. Can we sustain that for 4 days? Better at 0.92, and that'll be pushing it. Thanks, Gah-ka, Captain out. She turned to Bliff. Run the numbers at 0.90 for hard stop and what we can do at hard burn. Anything massive enough for a slingshot. Bliff took about 5 minutes making adjustments and inputting data. Passini drummed her fingers lightly against the top of her workstation. When minute 5 came and went, she cleared her throat. Bliff smiled. Almost done, Captain. We got several different Territon asteroids. Computer says we could make the total trip in 1 week. Please send a coded message to Season and Bonghwang. Also, send her captain my compliments and request a moment of grog and skilly. Yes, ma'am. Sending coded message to Season and Bonghwang along with a pointed message to Bonghwang's captain. Compliments and request for grog and skilly at earliest convenience. Passini nodded. Proceed. You still have the con, Bliff. I'll relieve you in 4 hours. Place crew in emergency rescue and broadcast. We are now in ration mode and shifts are now 2 for 3. Have second mate as floater at 24/7. Bliff thought Renee was going to soil his pants. 24/7 floater was a nightmare shift. On it, Captain. Park had been reading one of her favorite novels, Grid Traveler, Rabbit Hole. The author passed away only a few years ago. He was well into his 90s. She had just finished chapter 5 when she got a coded message from the Vandu. It was their help or their savior. She heard of Captain Passini and thought she looked very pretty from her official biopic. The message read that they would be in the area in a week. Park ran the numbers in her head and realized that the Vandu might be redlining her engines. It was a first-generation cargo ship, and the engines, she was sure, needed a major overhaul. Looking up the Vandu's mission plan submission and progress, she noticed it set sail 2 weeks before the Bonghwang for about 2/3 the distance, with the Bonghwang reaching their asteroid a week sooner. With the eventual loss of Engine 2, the Bonghwang would need the Vandu to help push the asteroid into the proper transfer orbit. A 50-50 split of profit was starting to look better. At the very least, Passini could either retrofit the entire Vandu or buy a newer ship. The payout would be that good. She keyed in her reply, returning the courtesy compliment, and added the grog was warm and the skilly hot, with both waiting for her upon arrival. Year 8. Year 8, month 2, week 2, day 3 hour 17 minute 10, second 17. Earth date, 802020-317-1017. Chapter 9. Kirk sounded apprehensive. Captain, we're ready. Proceed. He tapped in a special code on his CRT. He clicked the comm button. Guys, ready. He heard MacDonald snap. Let's get this done already. I got a bad feeling and it needs to drift away. He entered the command that released the main bolts. Done.
The end of Part 2. Thank you for listening to E Pluribus Unum, Chapters 6 through 9. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. We are committed to creating human-written original audio stories. Until then,
mighty giants exist. The sky turns angry, raining down boulders of dust. Set ablaze today, their death is a must. Demons of rocks approach, rain of chaos to land. An epic song, an orchestra of death. 60 million years to pass, notes of debris set to sound. It is played loud and strong to pummel from above on waters, cities, and lands. A scientist looks to the sky, her thoughts secure humankind.